Are they, Peter?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
What happened?
Yeah, exactly. On top of it, we even put in more. So
right.
yeah, so the waste is enormous. What we do hope, over time will happen is that it starts reseeding itself. If you look, you have a lot of seedlings.
Has this all been cut back?
Yeah, it's all been cut back.
There are few people that have the confidence or even the courage to experiment on this scale. But now I know Peter's bigger picture, it does make sense. Now, where nature is left to fend for itself, marginal plants tend to fail and a few others become very dominant. The result here is that Santolina and rosemary, for example, seem to be very happy and form low mounds around the house. Euphorbia also survives and seeds itself freely across the hillside. Inevitably, there are many failures, but that's all part of the process. The result may be horticulturally harsh, but it is fascinating.
What it seems to me you're describing is the least hospitable place in, if not the world, certainly in Europe, that you could build a garden.
Yeah.
But why bother to try and fight nature to such an extent? Or maybe you're not fighting nature.
I don't think we're fighting nature. We're trying to understand what nature needs in this site.
Okay.
And it is trial and error a lot.
Do you think this is something that all of us need to be thinking about, or something that only applies where you have extreme conditions like this?
So it's a good laboratory. Even in the worst conditions, you can actually try to push something forward.
Yeah. It is a lab, isn't it? It is a laboratory.
Peter doesn't use any compost to feed his garden, but he does use biodynamic compost on his vineyards, and that is made at the farmstead. And for it, you need manure, and that needs cattle to produce it. The same compost is also used on Peter's elaborate and much more conventional vegetable garden, which makes what he's doing, or rather not doing, on the hillside seem even more extraordinary and interesting.
It's fascinating to compare and contrast the similarities and differences between yesterday's garden by Miguel Urquijo and this garden, because they both share the similarities of being sensitive to the environment and blending the colours and the shapes and the forms. But the big difference is that yesterday Miguel had created really good growing conditions. Here there is no water, it's an experiment. Where it will go, who knows? But maybe, actually, this is the future.
Having seen how we may all have to adapt and plant in years to come, I now want to step back in time and look at Spain's past. So I'm on a 260-kilometer journey south, bound for the ancient city of Toledo. Toledo's history stretches a long way back. It was occupied by the Romans, the Visigoths, and then the Moors, after which the Emperor Charles V, who was the father of Philip II, made it his main residence. Toledo's setting is magnificent, and its history manifests itself from every aspect, including its gardens, and I'm going to visit two of them.
This is Palacio de Galiana, just outside the city of Toledo. And it's called after Galiana, who was the daughter of the royal household, who owned the palace, and she married Charlemagne, and the story is she renounced her Islamic faith in order to make the marriage.
The palace was built in the 13th century by King Alfonso X of Castile, on the site of an earlier summer villa of the Moorish king of Toledo. The Moors were driven from Toledo at the end of the 11th century after 350 years' rule. But the surviving 13th century building reflects their tradition.